From homeless child to hero. Don't trust your bride. She wants you dead. She calls the police. Before we tell this amazing story of bravery, hope, and finding family where you least expect it, please give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to smash the subscribe button and share this story to your friends. This story will move your heart in ways you never thought possible. Get ready for the ride. The November wind cut through Chicago like a razor blade, promising a winter that would show no mercy. 8-year-old Emma Martinez pressed her tiny body against the cold stone wall, her breath making small clouds in the freezing air. 4 months had passed since Grandma Sophia's funeral. 4 months since her world fell apart completely. The social workers had visited 3 times already, their gentle but firm voices echoing in her mind. Emma, you can't survive alone. We have to find you somewhere safe. But Emma remembered what happened to Carlos from her old building when they took him away. He promised to come back and see Mrs. Garcia, but he never did. As darkness swallowed the wealthy Beverly Hills neighborhood, Emma's desperate eyes found hope. The Henderson mansion's garage glowed with warm, welcoming light. Unlike the other houses she'd passed, this one had something magical. Heat flowing from inside, protecting fancy cars from California's cold nights. Michael Henderson, 45 and owner of Henderson Industries, was carefully cleaning his precious 1969 Camaro as tomorrow would mark another big moment in his perfectly planned life. Finalizing wedding plans with Victoria Sterling, the beautiful investment advisor who had swept him off his feet 9 months ago at a business dinner. "Just you and me tomorrow, old friend," he whispered to the Camaro, not knowing that small, frightened eyes watched from the shadows outside. When Michael finally left, locking the garage with high-tech security, Emma slipped through a loose board she had found earlier. Behind tall storage boxes, she made a tiny hideout, invisible, warm, and safe. As she curled up on a piece of cardboard, holding her grandmother's faded picture, Emma whispered the prayer Grandma Sophia had taught her. "Please keep me safe until morning." She had no idea she'd just picked the hiding place that would change everything. But in the darkness outside, someone else was watching the Henderson mansion with very different plans. The next morning came with golden sunshine streaming through the garage's tall windows. Emma had barely slept. Every sound made her heart pound. But as warmth filled her secret hiding spot, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Safety. The electronic garage door hummed to life, and Michael Henderson walked inside. His expensive cologne mixed with the smell of leather and engine oil. Behind him came Victoria Sterling, her designer shoes clicking on the smooth concrete floor. "Honey, show me this mysterious wedding surprise you've been hiding," Victoria said sweetly. Though her smile looked fake rather than real, hidden behind the storage boxes, Emma watched as Michael's face lit up with boyish excitement. He led Victoria to a car covered by a clean white sheet. "Something special for our big day," he announced, pulling away the cover dramatically. The restored Camaro gleamed like liquid fire under the lights. Victoria's expression flickered, just for a moment, from fake happiness to cold calculation. "It's valuable, isn't it?" she asked, running her painted fingernails along the hood. "Priceless to me," Michael replied, missing the difference entirely. "My father and I rebuilt the engine when I was 13. After the wedding, we'll take her for a drive along the coast." From her hiding spot, Emma watched Victoria's reflection in the car's chrome. The woman's smile never reached her eyes, and something about her reminded Emma of the mean lady at the store who always watched kids suspiciously. But Michael was different. The way he spoke to his cars, gentle and loving, reminded her of how Grandma Sophia used to talk to her flowers. "You've been patient, haven't you, beautiful?" he whispered to the Camaro, polishing an already perfect surface. After they left, Emma created her daily routine. During the day, she stayed perfectly still, playing the hiding games Grandma Sophia had taught her during their visits to the park. Only when darkness came did she sneak out, slipping into the mansion's outdoor kitchen to find food scraps, always careful to take just enough to survive, never enough to be noticed. But on her 4th night, as she ate leftover bread, she heard Victoria's voice through the kitchen window, sharp and angry on a phone call. The timeline hasn't changed, Tyler. Right after the honeymoon. Emma froze. Something in that tone made her think of the scary movies Grandma Sophia never let her watch. By her 6th day in the garage, Emma had grown brave enough to explore during the quiet afternoon hours when Michael worked in his home office. She discovered that the garage's air system carried voices from throughout the house, turning her hiding spot into an accidental listening post. That night, sleep wouldn't come. At midnight, the garage door's quiet hum woke her up. Victoria slipped inside alone, thinking no one could see her, her phone pressed to her ear. The insurance was approved today, Tyler. $60 million. Victoria's voice carried a coldness that made Emma shiver despite the warmth. We just need to follow through with the plan after the ceremony. Emma didn't understand words like insurance or approved, but she understood danger. The tone reminded her of when she'd heard the landlord threatening to kick them out before Grandma Sophia got sick. Stop worrying about details, Victoria continued, pacing near the Camaro. Michael insists on driving this stupid car after the reception. It's perfect timing. When Victoria finally left, Emma stayed frozen behind her boxes, her 8-year-old mind struggling to understand what she'd heard. The next morning brought another disturbing scene. Through the garage's side window, Emma watched Victoria in Michael's office while he stepped outside to take a business call. The woman moved with purpose, taking pictures of papers on his desk with her phone. Her movements quick and sneaky. When Michael returned with coffee for both of them, Victoria was sitting innocently, her bright smile firmly in place. You're amazing for handling all these last-minute details, sweetheart, Michael said, kissing her forehead. Anything for our future together, Victoria replied, her fingers touching the papers she'd just been photographing possessively. From her hiding spot, Emma watched this performance with growing worry. Grandma Sophia had always told her to trust her feelings about people. Your heart knows things your brain hasn't figured out yet, little bird, she used to say. And right now, Emma's heart was screaming warnings about the woman Michael planned to marry that evening. As Emma carefully collected rainwater in a small cup she'd found, she heard Victoria making another late-night call. 4 days, Tyler. 4 more days and everything changes. The certainty in Victoria's voice sent ice through Emma's veins. Whatever was going to happen in 4 days, Michael's wedding day, she knew it would be terrible. But who would believe a homeless 8-year-old hiding in a stranger's garage? 4 days before the wedding, Emma was carefully eating crackers she'd found in the outdoor kitchen when the garage door opened silently at 3 a.m. Her heart pounded as Victoria entered with a tall, thin man wearing dark clothes. Tyler, Victoria whispered, her voice filled with deadly satisfaction. Everything's falling into place perfectly. Emma pressed herself deeper into the shadows, hardly daring to breathe as the strangers moved closer to Michael's beloved Camaro. Michael insists on driving this damn car after the reception, Victoria explained, running her hand along the hood with fake affection. He wants to take it for a romantic drive along Pacific Coast Highway, the curve near Malibu Point. You know, the one that overlooks the cliff. Tyler nodded grimly. Sharp turn, steep drop. But what if someone suspects? Who would suspect anything? Victoria's laugh was cold as winter rain. A $60 million life insurance policy covering accidents. A vintage car with mechanical failure. Tragic newlywed accident. The media will love it. Emma's small hands clenched into fists. Even at 8, she understood death. She'd watched Grandma Sophia grow weaker and weaker until the machine stopped beeping. But this was different. This was murder. The brake lines, Tyler continued, pulling tools from a black bag. We cut them partially, not completely. They'll hold for normal driving around town. But the moment he hits those brakes hard on that steep curve. Boom! Victoria finished with satisfaction. I tested the route yesterday. Michael plans to take the car for one last test drive tomorrow before the wedding rehearsal. That curve doesn't forgive mistakes. Horror filled Emma's chest as she watched Tyler crouch beside the Camaro's front wheel. These people were going to hurt Michael. Kind Michael, who talked sweetly to his cars and brought Victoria coffee every morning. A small wrench slipped from Tyler's hand, clanging against the concrete. Both conspirators froze. What was that? Tyler hissed. Victoria listened carefully, then shrugged. Probably one of the gardener's cats. They get into everything. As Tyler resumed his deadly work, cutting brake lines with surgical precision, Emma bit her lip to keep from crying out. She thought of Grandma Sophia's voice. Sometimes, little bird, doing the right thing means being braver than you've ever been. But how could someone so small stop something so terrible? When they finally left, Emma crept toward the Camaro on shaking legs. Even in the dim light, she could see the damage, fluid pooling beneath the car like dark tears. Tomorrow Michael would take his final test drive. Unable to escape without being seen, Emma remained frozen in her hiding spot as Victoria and Tyler methodically destroyed Michael's cherished Camaro. The precision of their work terrified her. This wasn't random vandalism, but calculated murder. "Hand me the smaller cutter," Victoria whispered, showing surprising mechanical knowledge as she pointed to specific brake lines. "We need to weaken this section just enough. When he presses hard on the brakes going downhill." Tyler worked with the skill of someone who'd done this before. "The fluid will drain slowly at first, then completely fail under pressure. It'll look like old equipment giving out." Emma watched in horrified fascination as they drained brake fluid into containers, then carefully cleaned up every trace of their presence. These weren't amateurs. They moved like ghosts, leaving no evidence except the invisible death trap they'd created. "I tested the route yesterday," Victoria continued, her voice filled with anticipation. "Michael mentioned he wants to take it up to the Hollywood Hills tomorrow morning, then down Pacific Coast Highway before picking up his best man at the airport. That stretch past Malibu Point has claimed 4 cars in the past decade." "What about the wedding?" Tyler asked, sealing the brake fluid containers. Victoria's smile was predatory. "I'll be the devastated widow before I'm even technically a wife. The sympathy will be overwhelming. Local news loves tragic stories. Successful businessman dies in vintage car accident the day before his wedding." When they finished, the Camaro looked exactly the same from the outside. Only someone checking underneath would notice the carefully orchestrated sabotage. "Beautiful work," Victoria said, running her hand lovingly along the car's hood one final time. "Michael always said this car was his pride and joy. How poetic that it'll be his coffin." After they left, Emma crept toward the Camaro on trembling legs. Underneath, she could see where fluid had dripped. Not much but enough. She remembered watching mechanics work on cars near their old apartment. Remembered Grandma Sophia explaining how brakes kept cars from crashing. The smell of brake fluid filled her nose, sharp and chemical. She touched the puddle with her finger, then immediately wiped it on her already dirty clothes, afraid it might be dangerous. Looking up at the magnificent red car, Emma whispered, "I'm sorry they hurt you." But tomorrow morning, Michael would climb into this beautiful death trap, completely unaware that his fiancée had just signed his death warrant. And Emma was the only person in the world who knew the truth. Dawn broke over Los Angeles with cruel beauty, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Emma hadn't slept at all, her mind racing with impossible choices. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Michael's kind face and heard Grandma Sophia's voice. "Doing the right thing is rarely doing the easy thing, little bird." But what was the right thing for a homeless 8-year-old who'd been hiding illegally in a stranger's garage? Through the windows, she watched Michael and Victoria having breakfast on the patio. Victoria played her part perfectly. The loving fiancé feeding him strawberries, laughing at his jokes, adjusting his tie with tender care. The performance was flawless, and it made Emma's stomach turn. "I can't wait to start our life together," Victoria said, her voice carrying clearly through the morning air. "After your little joy ride in that car today, we'll be inseparable." Michael checked his watch. "Just a quick test drive to make sure everything's perfect. Then I'll pick up James from the airport. He's been dying to see the Camaro since I told him about the restoration." Emma's heart hammered. Michael planned to test the car in exactly 1 hour. James, his best man, would be waiting at the airport, but Michael would never arrive. Instead, he'd be lying broken at the bottom of Malibu Point while Victoria played the grieving widow. The weight of knowledge pressed down on her small shoulders like a mountain. She thought about the social workers, about being taken away to strangers, about the group home Carlos had described in whispered, fearful words. Everything in her 8-year-old world screamed, run and hide. But then she remembered Michael's gentle voice talking to his cars. The way he'd unknowingly provided her with warmth and shelter when she had nowhere else to go. He'd never even met her, but his kindness had saved her life. Could she really let him die to protect herself? Through the garage window, she watched Michael kiss Victoria goodbye and start walking toward the garage, keys jingling in his hand. His face glowed with anticipation. He genuinely loved that car, loved his fiancée, loved his carefully planned life, a life that would end in 15 minutes if Emma stayed hidden. With a courage that would have made Grandma Sophia proud, Emma made her choice. She couldn't save herself and let Michael die. Some things mattered more than being safe. Taking a deep breath that tasted like motor oil and morning air, she stepped out from behind the storage boxes for the first time in over a week. Michael Henderson said goodbye to Victoria with a tender kiss and walked toward the garage, spinning his keys around his finger like a man without a care in the world. The morning sun caught the metal, creating tiny rainbows that danced across the pristine driveway. Gathering every ounce of courage her small body possessed, Emma burst from the side garden and ran across the perfectly cut lawn, her bare feet slipping on the dew-soaked grass. "Sir, don't get in your car," she screamed, her thin voice cutting through the peaceful morning air like a siren. "The pretty lady broke it last night." Michael froze mid-step, completely stunned by the apparition racing toward him. A tiny girl with tangled hair wearing clothes that had seen better days, her eyes wide with desperate urgency. On the patio, Victoria's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, shattering against the white marble with a sound like breaking bones. Dark liquid spread across the stone like spilled blood. "Don't drive the red car. They want to hurt you," Emma continued, stopping just out of arm's reach but pointing directly at Victoria, who was now rushing down the patio steps with alarm painted across her features. "Darling, who is this child?" Victoria's voice carried perfect concern, but her eyes blazed with barely contained fury. "We need to call security immediately. She's obviously been living on the streets." Michael's business instincts, honed by years of reading people in difficult situations, kicked into high gear. The child's terror was genuine. No 8-year-old could fake that level of fear. But more disturbing was something in Victoria's reaction, a flash of panic before the concerned mask fell into place. "They cut the lines under your pretty car," Emma continued, her voice shaking but determined. "The man with dark clothes and the lady with sharp fingernails. They said you'd crash at the scary curve." "This is ridiculous," Victoria snapped, her composure cracking slightly. "Michael, she's obviously mentally unstable. We need to call the authorities and have her removed from the property." But Michael was studying Emma's face, seeing something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't the rambling of a disturbed child. This was testimony delivered with the precision of someone who'd witnessed something horrific. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked gently, ignoring Victoria's increasingly frantic protests. "Emma Martinez," she whispered. "And I've been living in your garage because it's warm and safe. But your car isn't safe anymore. Please don't drive it." Michael pulled out his phone with steady hands. "I'm calling 911, he announced, his voice calm but deadly serious. "I want both police and a mechanic here immediately." Victoria's face went white as winter snow. "They broke your red car to make you crash," Emma insisted, maintaining her distance while pointing an accusatory finger at Victoria, who approached with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Sweetheart, someone clearly needs to call Child Protective Services," Victoria said, her voice dripping with false concern. "This poor little thing has obviously been living rough. She's probably hallucinating from hunger and exposure." Michael noticed how Victoria positioned herself between him and the garage, blocking his path to the Camaro. Her body language spoke volumes. Protective, defensive, almost territorial. "Michael, we can't take the word of a homeless child who's been trespassing on our property," Victoria continued, her tone becoming more urgent. She could be mentally ill or making up stories for attention. But Emma stood her ground, trembling yet determined. "I saw them with the tools. The scary man called Tyler and the pretty lady who pretends to love you. They said 60 million when you die." The specificity of that number hit Michael like a physical blow. His life insurance policy. Information that only Victoria and his lawyer knew. His instincts, which had built an industrial empire from nothing, screamed danger. "I'm calling 911, he repeated, his thumb already dialing. "We'll let the professionals sort this out." "Michael, please." Victoria's mask slipped further, revealing something desperate underneath. "You're really going to trust some vagrant child over your own fiancé? After everything we've built together? If there's nothing wrong with the car, then there's no harm in having it checked," Michael replied with businessman's logic, the phone already ringing on the other end. Victoria's face cycled through emotions. Panic, anger, calculation. "You're embarrassing us both. What will people think when they hear you called the police because a homeless child told you ghost stories?" But Michael was already speaking to the dispatcher. "I need police and a certified mechanic at 1543 Beverly Drive immediately. I have reason to believe my vehicle has been sabotaged." The color drained from Victoria's face like water down a drain. In that moment, Emma saw something that terrified her more than hunger or cold ever had. The look of a cornered predator realizing the hunt had gone wrong. "You'll regret this, Michael," Victoria whispered so quietly that only Emma caught the words. "Both of you." As sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer with each passing second, Emma pressed closer to Michael's protective presence, sensing that the real danger was just beginning. While they waited for emergency responders, Emma's adrenaline finally began to fade, leaving her shaking like a leaf in an autumn storm. The magnitude of what she'd done, revealing herself after hiding for nearly 3 weeks, crashed over her in waves. "I was so cold outside," she whispered to Michael, expecting punishment. "Your garage was warm and safe. I didn't take much food, I promise." Instead of anger, Michael's expression softened with something Emma had rarely seen: genuine compassion. "Rosa," he called to his housekeeper, "please bring hot chocolate and a blanket." Victoria watched this exchange with barely concealed fury. "Michael, you're encouraging a criminal. She's been stealing from us, trespassing on private property. We should press charges." "She's 8 years old," Michael replied firmly, his protective instincts fully engaged. The police arrived within minutes, followed by Danny Rodriguez, a certified mechanic Michael had specifically requested. Detective Sarah Kim, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, took immediate control of the scene. "Let's start with the vehicle inspection," she announced, directing the mechanic toward the Camaro. Victoria made one final desperate play. "Detective, this child is clearly disturbed. She's been living illegally on our property, stealing food. You can't possibly take her word over mine." But Danny Rodriguez was already sliding under the Camaro with his flashlight. Within minutes, he emerged with grim news. "Brake lines have been cut with precision tools," he announced, holding up his phone with photos of the damage. This wasn't wear and tear, this was deliberate sabotage. Another few miles of driving, especially downhill, and these brakes would have failed completely. Detective Kim's expression hardened as she turned to Victoria. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with us for questioning. This is insane." Victoria protested, but her voice cracked with panic. "You're arresting me based on the fantasies of a homeless child." "We're arresting you based on physical evidence," Detective Kim replied coolly, reading Victoria her rights as backup officers arrived. As Victoria was led away in handcuffs, she shot one final venomous look at Emma. "You stupid little girl. You have no idea what you've cost me." But Emma wasn't looking at Victoria anymore. She was staring up at Michael, waiting for the inevitable moment when he'd hand her over to social services. Instead, Michael knelt down to her eye level, his voice gentle. "Emma, you saved my life today. That took incredible courage. Are you going to send me away now?" she whispered. Michael glanced at Detective Kim, who nodded understandingly. "Emma, would you like to stay here while we figure out what's best for you? You'll have a warm bed, good food, and all the hot chocolate you want." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Not of fear this time, but of hope. Really? Really? Heroes deserve better than hiding in garages. 6 months later, the adoption papers were finalized. Emma Martinez Henderson stood in the same garage where she'd once hidden, but now it held a different meaning. Not a shelter from the storm, but the place where she'd found her family. Victoria Sterling and Tyler Morrison had been sentenced to 20 years for attempted murder and insurance fraud. Michael had established a foundation for homeless children in Emma's honor. "Ready for our Sunday drive, kiddo?" Michael asked, twirling the Camaro's keys. The same gesture that had nearly led to his death, now transformed into a symbol of their Sunday tradition. "Ready, Dad," Emma grinned, climbing into the passenger seat of the fully restored car. As they drove along the Pacific Coast Highway, safely with perfect brakes, Emma pressed her face to the window and whispered a thank you to Grandma Sophia. Sometimes the smallest acts of courage create the biggest miracles. And sometimes, saving someone else's life is exactly how you save your own.